Man, I am so fired up to be here. You guys excited to be here?
Yeah.
How many of you wouldn't mind doubling your sales this year? If you're not raising your hand, what are you doing here, man? I want to take you on a journey where I was able to do exactly that, where I doubled my sales in 1 year. Go with me in your mind to a little over a year ago. I'm sitting on an airplane, and I'm flying down to Mexico for President's Club. And you guys can picture the scene, right? It's a little something like this on the airplane. It is absolute chaos. People are drinking. Salespeople like to drink, right? So everyone's partying, having shots. It's like 9 in the morning. And at one point, it got so out of control that I kid you not, one of the sales guys somehow gets a hold of the microphone on the airplane, and he says something like, "President's Club 2017, baby!" That was my cue. I slid on my headphones, and I kind of sunk back into my chair. And for whatever reason, I wasn't ready to party yet. And I had this really interesting moment of reflection. I was thinking to myself, what made this past year so special? How did I go from a guy that didn't make it to President's Club to becoming number one and becoming the Senior Account Executive of the Year? How did I go from being mediocre to literally doubling my sales in 1 year? And the good news for all of you is this really wasn't a transformative process. I really came up with some distinct shifts that I made, but I didn't really transform as a salesperson. So what was interesting is I pulled out my laptop in this moment of reflection, and I just decided to start typing. It was a very spontaneous thing. I had no intention of doing that at the beginning of the day. I just decided to do it right then and there. And I came up with some points, and I ended up coming up with 7 specific shifts that I made. And then I started to add a little bit of color to it. I started expanding on each of the points, and it started to become kind of like an article, and it really just flowed out of me. Probably in 90 minutes, I wrote this thing. Then I folded up my laptop and enjoyed the plane ride with the rest of the crew, and we had an awesome time in Mexico, as you could imagine. I come back to the office Monday morning, and I have a pounding headache the next week, probably from enjoying too many margaritas. And I said, you know what, I think I'm just going to post this thing up on LinkedIn. I'd never really done a whole lot of this before. I think I had only posted 2 things before on LinkedIn. And I just decided, what the heck? I don't have an audience. No one follows me. But this is important to me. This was a special thing. And I think some people could probably benefit from this. So I posted it up there, and a couple hours passes by, and it's like, wow, some people are actually taking notice of this. I wake up the next morning, and my inbox is full of messages. And I go and click on the article, and a bunch of people have engaged with it. And then a few days go by, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of people taking notice of this article. What is happening? By the time the weekend rolls around, I'm sitting there in my living room at my townhome with my roommate in Seattle, and he's like, dude, is this thing going viral? I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. This is so crazy. And this thing really did catch a buzz in the sales community. This is just a screenshot of the article. It struck a chord, right? And this is, interestingly enough, how I met Scott was through this article, and how I eventually went on to his podcast, along with a number of other opportunities that have come my way just because of making this one decision to write this article. So what I'd like to do in these next few minutes is really unpack each of the points in this article, as well as talk to you about another chapter in my life, a more recent chapter. So I want you to turn to the person next to you and say, I'm ready to double down. Do it right now.
I'm ready to double down.
All right, good job, guys. That was hard. I had to tell you twice. Okay, so the first one on here, I sold myself. What does this mean to sell yourself? Right? Are you making some kind of weird transaction with yourself? No. It's being sold on yourself. I remember before I made this shift, it was always like, who's going to be my Batman? Who's going to save me, right? I was always looking around the sales floor like, who can help me close this deal, because I'm not sold on me. I'm not confident. And that's really what it boils down to, right, is confidence. Being confident in yourself. Building your confidence. Think about that phrase, building confidence. It's not voodoo magic, right? You don't wake up one morning and you don't say, I'm confident. I sold myself. It doesn't happen that way. Maybe for some of you, but for me, it's a process of building. And what does building imply? It implies action, right? And I love the way that Dale Carnegie says it. He says, inaction breeds doubt and fear. That's a crazy statement. Inaction actually breeds doubt and fear. Action breeds confidence. If you want to have confidence, you have to take action. Confidence and courage. If you want to conquer fear, do not sit at home and think about it. Go out and get busy. That's the point here. If you want to double your sales, you got to get busy. The second point on here is, I ignored the perception of what's possible. How many of you ever seen this goal from somebody? This year, in 2018, I'd like to hit my quota. Wow, that took some creativity and big thinking. Dude, you need to absolutely forget about your quota. Do you know what a quota is? It's two guys in a conference room looking at a Salesforce report and picking a number. It's a made-up number. And yes, it's based off of data, but who cares? You're not data. You're your own person. And that's what I did when I was at PayScale is I said, forget about what anybody else has done in the last 12 years. I'm going to create a new reality. And I remember at this last company, if you sold like one deal in a month, that was like pretty status quo. If you sold two, it was like, okay, you're having a pretty good month. If you sold three, it's like, wow, this is a great month. And if you sold four, it was like, is this guy on performance-enhancing drugs? There was one particular month where I sold 7 deals in 1 month, and I broke the record for the amount of deals in my segment that were sold. So you have to completely forget about what your peers are doing, about the standard that they've set, and go after a target that's way bigger than your quota. It's about your mindset, right? The third point is this: I took absolute control, and people seem to love this sort of analogy that I created on my article, which is the experience you have when you go to the doctor, right? You don't show up to the doctor's office and start telling them what you need. The doctor is the one who takes control. And you want to know a surefire way, if you were a patient, to lose confidence in the doctor, is if they didn't know what should happen, what the next step should be. You know, what would you think if the way that they responded to you was, well, I think we'll just cut open into your heart, I think. And maybe we'll do it in a week or 2 weeks. Like, are you kidding me? Here's the thing you have to remember about buyers. They want to be told what to do, believe it or not. And we're used to talking to people that are very opinionated, right? So it seems counterintuitive, but people actually really enjoy someone who takes control of the process. So you're asking, how do you take control? I'll give you a couple secrets. One of my secret sauces was I would always speak in terms of how other customers do it. So come up with some phrases. For me, it was, you know, if you were to talk to our customers today, this is what they'd tell you. If you were to talk to this customer, he'd say this. Hey, I was talking to the VP at this company. Here's how they decided to approach that problem. Man, they knew they needed to get going on this, right? You can use all of that to sort of push your urgency. And I loved my old sales director. He had this great little trick that we would use. You know, I'm sure you've heard from people all the time where they'll say, well, let's meet in a couple weeks. Or if you don't beat them to the punch, right? Because you need to beat them to the punch. But if you don't, and they say, let's do this in 2 or 3 weeks, I would open up my fake calendar. You know, because I'm on the phone. They can't see anything. And I would act like I'm looking through it. I go, let me take a look. The 15th. Oh, man, I'm totally booked. What do you say we meet tomorrow? And it's a funny little trick that works. What do you say we just meet Tuesday? And I can't tell you why it works, but it does. So if you're okay with that, I would invite you to try it next time on a sales call. The fourth point on here is I set huge goals, and who recognizes this guy? This is Mr. 10X, Grant Cardone. And you want to talk about goals? I was on a podcast a year ago, and the guy asked me, if you could meet anybody in the world, anybody, who would you like to meet? And I'm a sales guy, right? And I love Grant Cardone. So I said, I'd like to meet Grant Cardone, and I'm going to do anything I can to meet him. And 6 months later, I'm at his house eating dinner with him and playing poker with him until 1 in the morning and talking all things sales and real estate and business. It was just a dream come true. He's the guy that got my mindset right around thinking big, having a willingness to go big. You have to set huge goals. I remember I was watching this video on YouTube. This was about a year ago also. And it was this guy who's an expert in language acquisition. So he knows like pretty much every language out there. And they're asking him, how do you learn all these languages? Do you have like freakish memory? And he said, you know, the number one way that I'm able to learn languages is I declare to other people that I'm going to learn the language. And it creates this weird sense of accountability and action. I can't really describe it to you, but I've seen it work in my own life where when I was at PayScale, for instance, the year I did double my sales, everybody knew what I was trying to do. I would tell everybody, especially my manager. And she got in the rhythm in our weekly one-on-ones of checking in on me and saying, you know, how are you doing on the goal? How are you doing on the big goal? Until literally on the last phone call I made in 2016, I crossed that goal. And it was funny. I was on the phone with the guy, and he's like, yeah, I think I could send the contract back by the end of the day. And I was like, think you could send that back now? And he sent it back. He's like, yeah, why don't I just get it done with? He sends it back, and I put the phone on mute, and I did one of these. I can't even explain the feeling to you guys of how cool that was, to set a huge goal, verbalize it, and then actually hit it. MVPs. So what is MVPs? MVP stands for Most Valuable and Profitable. This is actually an acronym that my dad gave me because he, in his business, he has clients. And so he's talking about his most valuable and profitable clients. So kind of like the 80-20 rule. So I took that and I said, how can I apply that to my business? And at the time at PayScale, I started to think about, okay, what are my most valuable and profitable hours of the day? You guys are all superstars. You know this. There are the golden hours, right, for what you do, kind of that money slot. What are the most valuable and profitable activities that you have? And really what this is all about is really protecting your calendar and being intentional with how you spend your day. And so, you hear people talk about, one of the things you could do is demand an agenda. If someone puts a meeting on your calendar, I used to hate when a sales manager would put a team meeting like right in my golden hours. Like, what are we doing, man? We're trying to sell. Whoops. And instead of just asking for an agenda, ask for an intention. What's the intention of the meeting? What are we trying to accomplish? Because you could have a beautiful looking agenda, but what are you actually trying to accomplish in that meeting? So push back. You don't have to feel like you have to play good corporate citizen, right? Protect your calendar. In sales, that's like time is your most valuable asset by far. The sixth thing is I took massive action, massive amounts of action, and this is one of those Grant Cardone statements. And I started to become almost like a maniac with how much action I was taking. And a lot of people are like, well, how many phone calls are you making? This and that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm working like a maniac. I know when I look around, I'm just working way harder than everybody else. That's what massive action means. You know it in your gut, like when you're on the sales floor or when you're attacking your day, you know if you're taking massive amounts of action. And I remember distinctly one of the sales reps one time came back from lunch, and I'm still slaving away at my computer, just working like crazy. He comes back from lunch, and he's like, dude, what are you on? I'm like, what am I on? I'm on a mission, brother. I'm on a mission. You have to take massive action. If you want to be a successful sales rep, if you want to even consider doubling your sales, You have to take massive amounts of action. And I love, the reason I have Kobe Bryant up here is he gave this really cool speech a couple years ago. You guys may have seen it. It's the 4 a.m. speech, where he accepts this ESPY award and he says, you know, we got a lot of talented people up on this stage. A lot of talent, right? But it's not about the talent. You know what it's about? It's about 4 a.m. It's about the 2-a-days and the 5-a-days. And I just love that, right? It's not about the game-winning shot that Kobe Bryant makes. It's about the 10,000 practice shots he took the day before. Think about that with your sales process. As much as you want to believe it is all about the big sales call, it's more about what you're doing on an ordinary Tuesday morning at 7:54 a.m. The kind of action that you're taking to prepare yourself. All of the grit and the hustle and the hard work that nobody really wants to talk about, to be completely honest. It's like, show me the silver bullet to sell a deal. Dude, you're not going to like my answer. You're not going to like my answer. The last point was I always move forward. And when I stand up here and tell you, you know, I had this amazing year and I doubled my sales, you must be thinking, man, everything must have gone right for you. It was just one of those stars aligned kind of years, right? Everything was just going your way. I kid you not, 2016 was personally and professionally the hardest year of my life, where I've probably been thrown or was thrown more adversity than any other time in my life. But what I learned is you have to use every situation that's thrown at you as fuel to your fire, good or bad. Scott and I had a great conversation about this on the podcast, where it's like, you know, if something goes your way, all the more reason to pick up the phone and call someone. If something doesn't go your way, all the more reason to pick up the phone and call someone. So you have to have this mindset of always pressing forward, always having an excuse to surge forward. Momentum's a real thing, right? And I'm one of those guys too, like, if someone comes after me or something doesn't go my way, I get a chip on my shoulder. So you have to have that mindset, because life's going to happen, you know. You guys are all in sales. You know that in a year, there's ebbs and flows, and things don't go your way, but you always have to press forward. And this is it. You guys are going to roll your eyes, but this is the classic Rocky quote that I just love. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life, but it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Do you want to win? Do you want to double your sales? You have to always move forward and have this rock solid mindset. Do whatever it takes. A lot of interesting things happened after I posted this article. Like I said, it went pretty much bananas. And opened up a lot of interesting opportunities for me, which is really cool. And definitely the most life-altering thing that happened as a result of posting this article is it started a conversation with the guy that I work for now. And he reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he said, our SVP of sales read your article, and he shared it with the entire sales leadership team. And I got tons of messages like this, by the way. But this particular one, he said, we'd like to talk to you. I'd like to fly up there to Seattle and take you to wherever you want to go, and let's just talk about this really cool sales opportunity that we have. So I said, okay. And I picked the most expensive place I could think of. And we had a really cool conversation. And 2 weeks later, they flew me down to San Francisco, and I met with the SVP of sales. And we just hit it off. Like, we really clicked. Obviously, because he loved my article. So our philosophy on sales was just so aligned. Like, what could be more perfect than that? I say, these are all the things that I think are important. And he says, I couldn't agree more. That's how I think about sales. And so I decided to take a chance. You know, who in their right mind would double their sales, be on top of the world, have everything going for them, be the senior AE of the year, and say, I'm leaving, man? Who does that? Me, I guess. That's right. That's right. Someone who wants to double down again. It's about development, right? I mean, it's cool. Sure, being number one is cool, but what was I going to do? Go do everything again? Like, where's the development in that? So I wanted to go after something that was bigger, that had higher capacity for growth. And I said, I'm going to leave everything. And this is how many people I knew in Silicon Valley, by the way. Maybe had a couple LinkedIn connections there, but I knew 0 people in the Valley. All my friends and family are in Seattle. I'm really well networked. Obviously, I had a great thing going at PayScale, but I said, dude, I'm just rolling the dice. Let's do this. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. And what I'd like to spend the next few minutes talking about is some of the key learnings that I've had in the last year or so. The first one is initiate. So this is a photo of me and Damon John, and then actually a few days ago I was on a live stream with him on Instagram. I constantly have been taking the initiative. I wouldn't be up on this stage if I didn't decide at 30,000 feet to pull out my laptop and start typing. I wouldn't be in Silicon Valley. I wouldn't have the job that I have now. All sorts of other opportunities, right? You have to constantly be taking the initiative. I love what Damon John says in his book. He says, success is what you do before and after everything else you have to do. That's like my mantra. People are always saying to me like, dude, how did you meet with that guy? How did you get that job? How did you do this and that? It's like, well, I just did it. Like, it would almost be like someone saying, man, I can't lose any weight. And then you say, are you going to the gym? Well, no. But what supplements are you taking? You have to do the main thing, right? You have to take the initiative. How did I meet with Damon John? Well, first I had to figure out where he was. How did I meet with Grant Cardone? Well, first I had to figure out where he was. And then I got on an airplane. I had to go buy a ticket. I had to take all of these steps, right? You have to continuously keep taking the initiative and don't rest on your laurels. I met him once, but it's that follow-up, continuing to initiate, because your sales career will happen to you. If you don't take control, it will happen to you. Your manager, your boss will gladly tell you what your job is going to be and what your future is going to look like, unless you take the initiative and get into the cockpit and take absolute control of your life and your sales career. This is probably the biggest learning that I've had from this experience, is this idea of getting uncomfortable. And moving, obviously what I've described to you so far, like there's no way around getting uncomfortable. So I had to. So my message to you isn't necessarily go change jobs, go move to Silicon Valley. That's not what it is. That helped me get uncomfortable, and that helped me discover the power of getting uncomfortable. It was a random Saturday. I had a one-day notice, random Saturday, that I decided to jump on a plane and go meet with Grant Cardone. It was a random Sunday that I got in my car and drove down and met Damon John. It's Monday nights that I do this public speaking club. And by the way, I hate public speaking. It's Tuesday mornings before anybody else is awake that I host a mastermind. It's Sunday mornings that I volunteer at church and I'm a greeter. And by the way, I hate small talk. Why am I doing all these things? Why am I putting myself in situations that I hate? Because I know the power of getting uncomfortable. I know on the other side of discomfort is a world of development. People always want to talk about just lean into your strengths. I can't tell you how many strengths I've discovered just by getting uncomfortable and facing my fears head on. Again, I hate public speaking. I get nervous, but I do it every Monday. Think about the things in your life, in your sales process, the things that you're ignoring. Maybe it's role play, for instance. I hate role playing. It makes me cringe because it's not a real conversation. But you just have to continue to just face discomfort, drive at it head on, take it on head on. And you'll become a way better sales professional. And you'll start to discover things about yourself that's like, man, I had no idea I was good at that. The last thing is this, momentum. In the last year, I have made momentum my very best friend. You have to use wins in your sales process, in your career, in your life, as leverage to go after a bigger win, and a bigger win, and a bigger win. To the point where now I just think, and this isn't me being arrogant, I think I belong in the room with anybody. That I have a seat at the table with anybody. I can talk to anyone. That I could do any sales job. Because I'm using momentum as my friend. So think about the things maybe in your sales process or your career. How can you leverage wins in your life to go after a bigger win? Like, I'm sure you've had that feeling, right, in sales where you close a deal, maybe a big deal, and it's like, man, what if I went a little bit bigger? It almost like unlocks this part in your brain where you finally start to realize, oh, I could go a little bit bigger. So it's like this snowball effect, right? So do whatever you can to put yourself in a position to win. And once you get a win, ride that wave. Go after thing after thing after thing. So with that, I invite you guys to double down. Think bigger. Act bigger. Be bigger. And I guarantee you, you'll have no problem doubling your sales this year. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome.
Hey, Kyle. Come here for a second. So, I have the privilege of seeing about 1,000 people or more a year give speeches because I MC and I speak at so many conferences. So for a guy who doesn't like public speaking, I'm a little bit of a visionary. If he wants to, I'm telling all of you in about 5 years when people say, Grant Cardone who? Because this guy's got the #1 best-selling sales book and is the top sales speaker in America because you fucking, excuse me, I can't say that. You frickin' have that. You don't even know it. So that's my prediction. When you say, hey, I saw that guy speak one of his first speeches, you can say, and Tom knew.
Thank you so much.
That was awesome.
That's a huge compliment. I appreciate that.
That was awesome.